want to welcome everybody to this first interview here at the studios. This is a brand new studio, and I've got an important guest here that I want to introduce. This is Jacob.
Yeah. I'm happy to be here.
And your last name's Waller, right?
Right, yeah.
And Jacob, how would you describe yourself? What do you do?
I'm a YouTuber and podcaster.
A YouTuber and a podcaster. Anything else?
Not really.
That's it. And that's how I met you. I wanted to ask you, how'd you find out about me? And oh, by the way, my real name is Dan Hornak, but I do go by Jake Thorne. So either those names are interchangeable for different reasons. But how did you find out about me, Jacob?
Well, it's interesting because I found out about you in 2015, I believe.
Huh.
And I saw an interview that you did. It was an interview that you did with Herb Perry. I don't know if you know who that is or not.
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah. And I saw that interview, and your contact information was on the screen, and that's when I reached out to you for an interview.
Mm-hmm. And I wondered, who is this guy? But that was the beginning of us knowing each other, and you've interviewed me several times. And one thing I have to say about Jacob is he's persistent. And because he's persistent, that's why he's here right today doing the first interview we've done here at the studio. But enough about that. I wanted to find out a little bit more of how did you become a podcaster and a YouTuber. And I want to tell the folks out there that this is an unusual circumstance. Jacob and I will be interviewing each other. So we're going to be nice because we don't want any real hard questions. But how did you get started, Jacob?
Well, I got started with YouTube about 10 years ago,
Mm-hmm.
in 2014, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
And I began doing YouTube. I began doing just like nonstop videos of me doing vlogs and maybe cover songs. And then in 2015, I did my first ever podcast, and then that went away. And then, I did a podcast, I did a few podcasts, kind of off and on. And then I recently began my new podcast that came out about a year ago. And the way I got involved with podcast is I saw a lot of creators doing podcasts on YouTube, and that kind of drew me into doing podcasts. And so I've been doing the podcast I have now for about going on 2 years in January.
How often do you put it up, and what is it called, and how can somebody find it?
Yeah, well, I put the podcast out every Monday at 1 o'clock. You can find the podcast on YouTube. You can find it on any podcasting sites. The podcast is called Conversations with Jacob. Has over almost 100 episodes almost. And the podcast is available on YouTube. It's on, like I said, the podcasting sites like Amazon, and Audible, Apple Podcast. So it's up there almost around the world almost.
Well, there's a lot of things I want to ask you about. You said when you first started back in 2014 after you just got out of high school.
Yeah.
And you took it step by step. What was the first thing you did? Do you remember?
The first thing that I did on YouTube, I don't quite remember because at the time between 2014 and to where I'm at now, which I've had a lot of videos, and sometimes I'll delete videos and kind of start over, and then kind of vice versa. So I really don't remember the first thing I did because I've deleted and uploaded and did it, kind of vice versa.
Well, is for the people out there who are curious and interested, and I'm curious and interested, how hard is it to start your own podcasting? How hard is it? What do you have to do?
It's a lot of challenges with doing a podcast, like kind of finding guests to be on the podcast.
Right.
You got to do your research. You got to reach out to them. Uh, you got to manage your social media accounts with the podcast, which can be a kind of hard sometimes because you got to upload on one site and you got to upload on the other. Those, I guess, the biggest challenges are finding people to interview.
What about cost? Does it cost anything to do what you're doing?
No, but I do it for free.
You do it for free?
Yeah.
People get to see you for free and you do it for free. That's interesting.
Yeah, well, I thought about going to another platform, which is Patreon,
right?
Like a membership site. Which I haven't really thought about it yet. It's just an idea. So maybe in the future, maybe I'll go to Patreon to where people can pay for a membership to see an episode. That's in the works, or just an idea.
Right. What about Zooming? I think we had an interview Zooming one time, didn't we?
Yeah, which I don't use Zoom or Skype no more. I use another platform. I think it's maybe StreamYard.
StreamYard.
Yeah, yeah, and that's more kind of useful for me because I get my podcast intro. I get the whole thing right there for me to click on to play and all of that.
Interesting. You said, well, we talked about how you kind of got into this, and we talked about what you need, finding people to interview. You mentioned that let's talk about you right now. Where are you with kind of like membership followers or likes? Where are you?
Well, with YouTube, I'm at 455 subscribers. My highest viewed video is like almost 2,000 views, and that's the one that I did with David Newell, who played Mr. McFeely on Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood.
Okay, the delivery man.
The delivery man, yeah. And so with subscribers, I'm like over 400 subscribers. With the likes, I think the most likes that I have is like 21 likes. And that's on the same video with Mr. McFeely. And also the podcast is on the Facebook page, and it has like maybe about 41 likes maybe. So that's about it, I guess.
Right. What would it take, or what would it take for you to increase, or how do you get these likes? How do you? It's your product that you go out there, and you're looking at different platforms.
Yeah.
But I guess I'm asking you all this because maybe someday I want to be an interviewer like you, or maybe I want to do some podcasts. So if you were going to give me some advice about podcasting, what would you tell good old Jake Thorne? How do I do it? What would you tell me?
It takes a lot of hard work. I guess the advice would be kind of take your time with it, kind of go with the flow. Of course, when I do my interviews, which I usually write down a few questions here and there, and then kind of feed off the guest after that. The advice would be don't try to copy other people.
There you go.
Because, of course, I've been the victim of that a few times, but I kind of come up with my own material now. But just the best advice is, just be yourself.
Be yourself and do it yourself. When you say somebody copied you, what did they do?
Oh, no. Oh, I copied them.
Oh, you copied them. Oh, yeah. Watch out for those people who copy you. But be your own self, because I think you feel more comfortable being yourself, doing it your way. You said Monday at what time?
Monday at 1 o'clock.
At 1 o'clock?
Yeah.
Is it hard to put up a podcast every Monday at 1 o'clock?
Well, the thing is, and what I do with my podcast was I take my podcast maybe 2 or 3 months in advance. So by that way, after I record it, let's say in July, and it goes up in October, then by the time October comes around, that podcast is already uploaded on YouTube. So it goes out when that day, kind of goes public when that day gets there.
So you set the date and say this is going to be that time, and so in other words, what you're saying is you have material ahead of time, podcasts ahead of time, so that when you're down here and this one's showing, you're going on and doing more, and it's chasing after you.
Yeah, pretty much.
I wanted to point out to people, hopefully this is going to be a half-an-hour show. We're going to try and do 15 minutes, and then we'll take a little break, and then we'll do another 15 minutes. And we're looking at what kind of format we want to have here. And like I said before, this is unusual because we're basically interviewing each other, and I get to interview him first, and then we're going to take a break, and then he's going to ask me some questions. Well, like I said before, this is all new. We're looking for a good format. So if it seems a little rough, it's because it is rough, because this is the first time. So we're going to do 4 more minutes, and then we will take a short break, and then we'll come back to an interview. And Jacob Waller's with me right now, and I'm Jake Thorne. What about the future? We talked a little bit about the future, but what about where would you like to go from here, Jacob?
Well, I would like to kind of build my YouTube channel more than what it is. I want to maybe kind of grow the podcast, my YouTube channel, maybe to a bigger platform, maybe a platform that is seen by more than what my channel is getting. And I wouldn't mind being viewed around the world, I guess by millions, which I know that won't be the case, but that's something that I would like to see myself go forward to in the future.
Well, you have to look forward, and you gotta have goals, and never say never. Strange things happen on the internet, right? Strange things happen with YouTube, and you never can tell when something's going to go viral. You mentioned a little bit about around the world. Have you had any comments from people from around the world?
Yeah, from someone in the UK, and also I've interviewed people from the UK and also in the Netherlands.
Oh.
Yeah, so I guess the only comments from around the world is from that person from the UK. And that's about the only comments that I received. Like I said, I've interviewed someone from the Netherlands. So that's about it.
So you want more viewers, you want more likes, and that's your goal. And I think that's everybody's goal. And one thing I wanted to say about you and tell everybody out there is that you've been persistent. I wouldn't be here with you if you weren't persistent. Who is this guy? Out of the clear blue, a guy named Jacob Waller was communicating with me, and that was a little intriguing, and we developed a kind of correspondence or a friendship just through the internet, and that is kind of a neat thing. I'm going to wish you more success here, but also overseas. I don't see why you can't get more people from around the world. A lot of people speak English, and there's a lot of interesting interviews out there. So I guess we'll be back right after this. I'm going to take a little 1-minute break, and we'll be joining Jacob Waller and myself in about a minute, so stay tuned. Welcome back. Well, the first half of this little show was about Jacob Waller. Now, what I'm going to do is he's answered a lot of my questions, and what I'm going to do is just have the camera pan over to him and turn the show over to him and see where he goes with it, okay? So, folks, I'm Jake Thorne, and over here's Jacob Waller.
Oh, I appreciate it, Jake. Now, can you tell us about how you got involved with John Wayne?
Well, you got an hour? I got involved with John Wayne like everybody does by watching his movies. Now, when I was 10 years old, it was my birthday. My best friend was over at my house. We were watching the early show after school, and a movie came on called Angel and the Bad Man, and it had John Wayne in it. And I hope everybody takes a look at it. It's a neat movie. John Wayne plays a gunman like he does in a lot of shows. It's a Western. He produced it, and his hero from when his childhood, a guy named Harry Carey, who was a silent Western actor, he had him in there, and there was a lot of good chemistry between John Wayne and this leading lady. Her name was Gail Russell, and she is a very interesting, very pretty young woman, and he thought she would make a good co-star, so she was in on it too. But when the movie was over, it had a happy ending, and I said to myself, for my birthday wish, my 10-year-old birthday wish, I wish I could talk like John Wayne. I thought there's something about his voice that was distinctive. Before that movie, I didn't know the difference between John Wayne and another Western actor, John Payne. I didn't know there was a difference. But that was the awakening of me really liking John Wayne. And as I said, I wish I could talk like him. Well, guess what? 10-year-olds don't talk like John Wayne. They just can't. Years later, went through high school, played football, boxed. I was making a recording to give to a girlfriend that had moved away, and I said, sometimes I get depressed about it. Now, there was something about that line, sometimes I get depressed about it, just the way the line came out, that it sounded a little bit like John Wayne. And so I kind of played around with that. Then fast forward another year or two, out of the clear blue, I decided to try out for a play. The first play, this was back in Kalamazoo, Michigan. The first play was a musical. I'd never sung before, but for whatever reason, I wanted to give it a try. Got through that. The next play was called See How They Run, and I played a British Army sergeant. And so I was doing it like Cary Grant. One of the lines was, he was only doing his duty for king and country. And the night before dress rehearsal, the director, Ted Kistler, was driving me home, and I just said, Ted, do you want me to do this like John Wayne? And he said, of course, like he was waiting for me to ask. And so the night of dress rehearsal, that's when you go through it one last time before you show the play, I walked out there and said, he was only doing his duty for king and country, and everybody died laughing. Everybody. And when people really laugh or clap, it really gets to you. So that was kind of the beginning, and that was a long time ago.
Do you got a favorite John Wayne line that you like to say?
Oh, I have a little bag full of them. Some of them are from movies, and some of them are from commercials that I did. And when somebody says, well, do John Wayne, it's like, gee, I don't know. So it's like hitting a button. It's like hitting a recording, and there's one like, he was only doing his duty, like I told you about, but then there's name a town. Anything.
How about Mount Airy?
Okay. There ain't nothing I like better than seeing good-looking ladies and handsome gentlemen in Mount Airy, North Carolina. Something like that. So you just reach in there and pull it up. So there are some John Wayne lines like, Pilgrim, you caused a lot of trouble this morning. Might have got somebody hurt. But I haven't been mad in 40 years. Well, I wouldn't hit you. Gosh, hell, I won't. Something like that, lines from that. Never apologize, mister. It's a sign of weakness. Things like that.
Before you became a John Wayne tribute artist, what was you doing before that?
What was I doing before that? Well, lots of things. After college, I taught elementary school, taught junior high. Then I got this idea that I wanted to go into movies, and so I picked the closest college that had film and television, and that was a mistake because television's really hard and they don't pay very much, and you have to work a long time before you get anywhere. But I went ahead and did that and got a job at a TV station, and there I was with a wife and 2 sons, actually 3 sons at that time, and I was making $4.75 an hour. That's not much money. But I kind of stuck with it, and I didn't have a choice. And from there, the TV station job, I wasn't making enough money. I went back into teaching, and then at the end of the school year, they said, come back in August. Well, guess what? I came back and they said, sorry, our enrollment's down. We don't have a job for you. So there I was. I had given up my TV job. I had didn't have a job in teaching, and basically it was melting welfare cheese. And if anybody's ever had welfare cheese, you know it doesn't melt. It just sits there. You can heat it up. It just sits there. It's fireproof. But I heard about another job, and a lot of television and film, a lot of it's networking. So a friend of a friend told me about a job in Washington, D.C. called the House Recording Studio. So I was desperate, and I did my homework and read up about it, and flew to Washington, and they interviewed me. And because I knew a little bit more about them than anybody else, they said, okay, we're prepared to offer you a job. So it sounded really good. That was one of the hardest jobs I ever had, but after 20 years, it was the best job I ever had. And because I got a late start, I was in my 30s when I went there. I was able to retire after 20 years, and that was a pretty good deal. So when I retired, I said, I want to do 3 things. I want to write, act, and paint. And so I came down here to North Carolina and painted the rooms in the house that we bought, and then later I did some plays on the Andy Griffith Playhouse stage, and ran into a guy who was looking for somebody who could talk like John Wayne, and he had written an original play at the Cherry Orchard Theater. And so the name of the play was It Happened on the Blue Ridge Parkway, and I played a park ranger who thought he was John Wayne. And so I talked like that and made friends with the director who wrote the play, and he helped me write a one-man show about the life of John Wayne, because I really wanted to tell the story about John Wayne, and I performed it up in the Cherry Orchard Theater in Ararat, Virginia. And then he came with me, and a sidekick of mine came with me. We went to Lone Pine, California, and we did my play there on stage for the first time anyway. So.
Now you do a one-man show, or did do a one-man show. Mm-hmm. How difficult is it to do a one-man show? If I'm not mistaken, when you do the life of John Wayne, mm-hmm. How difficult is it to do that?
Good question. It was hard putting it together, but it was also a labor of love. And I performed it out in California, different places, and I've had a lot of time to think about it. The play itself is 3 acts. The first act takes place out in the desert before dawn on the set, on a movie set, where John Wayne is just this young cowboy doing what they call horse operas. Back in the 30s, he did a lot of black and white, 1 hour long movies. And he was in the business for 10 years and struggling. So that's the first part of his life. That's 1938. And then you fast forward to 1958, the second part of his life, where he was in a movie called Rio Bravo. And it was full-blown John Wayne. Like, he's perfect form, sounds perfect. And so I pick it up there and basically tell the audience what he did for the previous 20 years and about 60 movies. And then finally, the last act is the last act in John Wayne's life, where it's 1978, Christmas time, just before he found out that he had stomach cancer. And so he looks back at his life too. Now, the significance about this, or my goals, are to, when people see John Wayne, this play about John Wayne, they feel closer to him and they understand him better. That's my goal. And, you know, people are still hungry for John Wayne. He's been dead for over 40 years, but they still know who John Wayne is. A lot of people do. And they're still hungry for him, and people do come to my show for that. And it never fails, no matter what I do, this play or make appearances, it never fails, because afterwards somebody will come up to me and say, don't stop. Don't keep doing what you're doing. And it can be pretty hard. But one of the reasons I go there, people come to the show because they're hungry for John Wayne. They want to see John Wayne. They want to see him. Well, guess what? I'm on the inside, and I want to see John Wayne too. And what I try to do is create him. And the more my voice sounds like him, the better I tell the story. That's what I want to see too. I'm here to see John Wayne too.
Now, what do you think John Wayne would say about the things that's happening today?
Whoa! Do we have 2 hours now? Well, let me tell you. Then this is my point of view, and I'm not going to go into politics. I'm going to tell you that John Wayne was a super patriot. He really believed in America, and he believed in Americans, and I'm sure he would tell you what's great about America is not the government, it's the people. Young people, old people, new. Young Americans, old Americans, new Americans. That's what makes America great, and that's what you have to think about, and that's what people out there have to think about, is America's great because of what you do. And John Wayne always tried to be strong. He did things by himself, but also he would join with other people to do the right thing. And so, John Wayne really hated communism. So guess what? There's a guy over in Russia right now who used to be a KGB agent. So I don't know if you can get much closer to communism than somebody who has whitewashed it and is still doing the same stuff. So he wouldn't be happy about what's going on over there. So how's that for an answer?
That's a pretty good answer. Now, do you got a favorite John Wayne movie, or is there just too many that you don't?
You know what people say, just like you, people ask me, well, what's your favorite John Wayne movie? And you know what I say? It's really easy. I say all of them. But for people out there and for you, there's like 3 or 4 movies that you really have to see. And tell me if you haven't seen it or not. But the one that made him a star, didn't make him an actor, but made him a star, was a movie called Stagecoach. Did you ever see Stagecoach?
Yeah,
You need to see that. Everybody out there needs to see Stagecoach because that's the breakthrough role for John Wayne. Another one is Red River, where John Wayne, he basically plays a bad guy. And a lot of bad things happen, and that's what made him an actor. Stagecoach made him a star, but Red River made him an actor. That's when he really started going, and a really big influence on him is a director named John Ford, one of the greatest directors in America. Out of maybe the top 5, he's one of the top 5 directors ever in America. And John Ford said, I didn't know that SOB could act, but the dude proved it. So John Ford, he's the guy that directed the Cavalry trilogy. There was Fort Apache, there was She Wore a Yellow River, and there was Rio Grande. That's called the Cavalry trilogy. Those 3 movies were directed by John Ford, and they're great. You asked about a favorite. Probably my favorite, maybe my favorite John Wayne movie is She Wore a Yellow Ribbon. Did you see that movie?
No, I haven't.
You got to go home and watch these movies. So he's pure John Wayne. Probably he should. There's a lot of movies he should have got Academy Awards for. And then finally, there's 3 more. So I think that's 6. But there's The Quiet Man, where he goes back to Ireland. Did you see that?
I have not.
Oh man, you got a lot of homework. All right, so The Quiet Man is a beautiful movie, and it covers a lot of things about John Wayne. Then there was a movie called The Searchers. That was in 1956, and that got a lot of Academy Awards. There is a movie called True Grit. He got an Academy Award for that, but I think there's a movie that sums it all up, and that is The Shootist. That was the last movie he made. He got killed in that. He got killed in about 6 or 7 movies. People don't really know that, but that if you saw those 6 or 7 movies, I think you'd be able to pick your favorite out of that.
Now, the only John Wayne movie I saw was called The Cowboys.
The Cowboys.
Yeah.
Well, of course you'd like that, and you were probably a kid when you saw it, right?
No, actually it was.
Saw it recently?
Not recently. It was like maybe 2014.
Oh, okay.
2015.
Right, so you really like that. Hey, he got killed in that one too, didn't he?
Sure did.
But he captured. Well, if you were a kid, there were a lot of kids that they grew up seeing the Cowboys, and that's it's hard to pick just one, or hard to pick just 7. There's a lot out there, and there's a lot you need to see because it captures a lot.
Now I've seen a John Wayne. I guess a scene from a movie where he throws the boy in the water.
That was Hondo.
Yeah. The boy said, I can't swim, and John Wayne said, we're going to learn today. And he threw him in. And then the mom came out and said, what are you doing? John Wayne said, I'm teaching him to swim. Then John Wayne was going to throw her in next. I did not think she ran away.
Nah, that was a pretty good movie. That was. You see John Wayne movies and you like them, and I'll tell you what, if you came home on Saturday night and the TV was playing and you heard his voice, it was like, hey, it's a John Wayne movie, and people tended to want to just sit down and watch it, no matter what it was. And there was something about John Wayne that made people, they gave comfort to people. It's like everything's going to be all right if John Wayne's there, including America. Everything's going to be all right. And I did a show one time, and afterwards a woman came up to me and she said, my son and I would watch John Wayne movies, and he was dying of cancer, but he really liked to watch the John Wayne movies because they made him feel better. Boy, that choked me up, I'll tell you. And the thing is what gives me, Jake Thorne, the right to impersonate or to personify John Wayne. I can say that I've stood in the shadow of John Wayne. I've touched the shadow of John Wayne. I know I'm not John Wayne, but I like to try to make him come to life, and I like to try to represent him, because as soon as, when he was gone for 30 years, people started saying bad things about him. And all I can say is don't believe anything that you hear about John Wayne being bad, because if he said certain things, it was because he was breathing the air of the times. If he said something derogatory or hey, this group of people has to do this or something, he was speaking up, and he wasn't afraid to speak up, right or wrong. He was going to speak up about that. But I've studied him for 50 years, and everything I've read about him has given me a picture of him, and he is and was the real deal. He wasn't a fake. Now, he portrayed a certain character all the time, but you know what? He was the closest thing to that character too. He was the real deal.
Do you think, John, since you portrayed John Wayne, do you think it's kind of different to turn the switch on between John Wayne and Jake Thorne?
Well, okay. In the beginning, I said, well, this is Dan Hornak, a.k.a. Jake Thorne. And then what does Jake Thorne do? He represents John Wayne. And I did that on purpose, in the sense that, hey, Jake Thorne, if you call me up and say, is Jake Thorne there? I'll say, yeah, I sure am. And I know you're talking about Jake Thorne, the performer. But Dan Hornak, he does the dishes and takes the garbage out. Okay, so there's some separation. In other words, I'm not saying, oh, I'm Jake Thorne. I'm not associating. There's a little separation from who I am to who's playing John Wayne to John Wayne. And John Wayne did that too. John Wayne's real name was Marion Michael Morrison. Well, Marion's kind of like a girl's name, and I'll tell you what, he got beat up a lot. Well, he had a dog named Duke, a big Airedale, and he would deliver papers, and Duke was his sidekick, go with him wherever he went. Well, he delivered papers to the firehouse, and the firemen, they knew his situation. When they saw John Wayne and his dog coming up there, they didn't say, here comes Marion and his dog Duke. They just said, here comes Big Duke and Little Duke. And the way he talked about it is, it was a toss-up. He was pretty skinny. That dog was pretty big, so it was a toss-up which one was which. But those firemen knew his predicament. He showed up with a black eye and a bloody lip, and the fireman said, come on in here. We'll teach you how to fight. We'll teach you how to box. And that was one of the best times of his short life, because he went from just being this kind of wimpy kid that got beat up a lot to being able to stand tall. And that was the beginning of it. So after that, after he got into the movies and everything, the public knew him as John Wayne. His friends called him Duke, and his mother still called him Marion. Well, Lord knows how hard it is to ignore a redheaded Irish woman, so he finally got her to call him son, and he would answer to son. But if you said Marion, he would totally ignore her. So let me just tell you, I don't know how much time we have, but let me just tell you the greatest compliment I ever got. And this is true because I have a witness. It isn't like I'm making it up or blowing smoke or anything. This is true. I found out about an auction in LA where they were auctioning off 750 lots, not items, but lots. That's grouping. 750 lots of John Wayne's memorabilia of his personal property and everything. And it was cool. Or picture a room 90 feet by about 300 feet, a convention room that had all this John Wayne stuff there. And guess what? You could touch it.
Oh yeah.
You could touch it. It's like, what does that feel like? There was a coat. I tried on one of his coats. I know my arms are longer than his. And so that was really cool. Well, I had made contact with the woman who was directing the auction. This was an auction. And before they have the auction, they have a preview. And that's what I was talking about. I was able to go there. My old sidekick, Wild Bill, came with me. And I was going to do a show in Lone Pine, that place where I did those shows. But before we went there, we said, let's go see the auction. And so we showed up there, and it was at night. It was after dinner. It was like 7 o'clock. I had to pay like $40 just to park in the hotel where it was at. And there were only about 60, 70 people there. Here's all this stuff. Well, I said to ask the woman, well, what about his sons? Are they going to show up? And she said, oh yeah, Ethan's right over there. And so there's Ethan Wayne, closest thing to John Wayne that anybody could get to. And so I walked over there and said, I'm Jake Thorne, and I was all dressed in black with cowboy boots and a John Wayne belt. And I said, I just want you to know I do a show about your dad, and I want you to know I do it to honor him. I'm not trying to make money off of it, your dad or anything. I just want to know that I do it to honor him. And so he said, that's cool. Well, Wild Bill, my sidekick, he was like looking at the stuff. And I said, hey, Bill, would you like to meet Ethan? Just like, hey, would you like to meet Jacob Waller, kind of thing. And yeah, okay. So he goes there, hi, I was in a John Wayne movie, and Ethan said, oh, you were in one of my dad's movies. And this 70-year-old guy turned into like this 10-year-old kid, because he stepped back and he shook his hand again, because he realized he was talking to John Wayne's son, not just a guy named Ethan. So that was really cool. Well, the next day, just before the auction started, we had to leave to go to Lone Pine, but just before the auction started, Patrick, his oldest living son, showed up too. So there was Ethan and there was Patrick. And just before I left, Patrick paid me a great compliment. Now, he said, your voice has the same tone and quality as my father's. Man, that sounded really great. Well, then Ethan says, yeah, I heard your voice, and I turned around because I thought it was my dad. And whoa, what a compliment. And what's really cool about it is I had a witness right next to me. I'm not just making this up. This guy would sign a statement that John Wayne's kids actually said this about me. So that was a great honor.
Now, for people that comes to Mount Airy,
yeah.
What are some of the things that you would suggest them to go and visit?
Oh, wow. Mount Airy is a great town, and it's a very friendly town. And the first thing I would say is go to the Andy Griffith Museum. That's really cool. Did you go there?
I went last time.
Oh, okay. All right. So there's the Andy Griffith Theater, but also there's the Siamese Twins exhibit across the street. Now, I haven't been there since they really built a new building, but they put in a lot of neat stuff about the twins. The Siamese Twins came from Siam, and they settled here in Mount Airy. So there's that factor, and there's a lot of relatives there, and some of them still have kind of an Oriental look, walking around the street. So that's really neat. And also Thelma Lou, she moved here, and she has a little exhibit there that talks about her, because she was a regular movie star too. Not just television, not just Mount Airy, Mayberry, but that. If you were here, you see a lot of 1960 police cars cruising around. Did you see those when you came in? It's like, this place is crawling with cops and old cop cars. Well, those are tours, and for a reasonable amount, you and your family can get in there and drive around this police car, and they'll show you where Andy Griffith's house was, where he grew up, and they'll show you the quarry, and they'll show you different things that are neat. So there's a lot to do, but also there's Walker's Malt Shop. I have to mention them. That's a real one of my favorite places. And right now on Saturday morning when we're taping this, they have the Earl Theater, and every Saturday morning they have live bluegrass music, and for $5 you can go in there and get to listen to it all day, and it's on the second oldest country music radio show. The oldest is the Grand Ole Opry, but the Earl Theater here in town, that's the second oldest one.
Now, and what would be some of the restaurants that you would recommend?
Well, everybody likes to come to the Snappy Lunch. Now, the Snappy Lunch is mentioned in Mount Airy in the Andy Griffith Show. They talk about going to Snappy Lunch. Right next to it is Floyd's Barber Shop, and right next to that is Opie's Candy Store. So right down there, you got a bunch of places you can go to, and Snappy Lunch, their specialty is the pork chop sandwich. And you probably had that, and you know, it's world famous, and even Oprah came and had a pork chop sandwich. And when people come, I say, here, I'll buy you a pork chop sandwich. We had breakfast already, otherwise we'd go get a pork chop sandwich.
Let's see. I think about a question.
That's about it. We talked each other to silence. Anyway, I think we're about out of time, and I just wanted to tell everybody that we'd like to hear what you think of this, and we'd want to support Jacob. Jacob, how can they reach you, or where can they go to see what you're doing?
Well, they can type my name on YouTube. Or you type in Conversations with Jacob on YouTube, it pops up that way.
Mm-hmm.
You can check me out on Facebook, just type in Conversations with Jacob on YouTube.
Uh-huh.
And I'm also on Instagram.
Wow.
You can just type my name in on there.
Now let's make sure they know your last name.
Yeah.
Jacob's easy to remember.
Yeah, my last name is Waller. It's Waller.
Okay, Jacob Waller.
Yeah.
On YouTube, on Facebook, on Instagram.
And I think on TikTok as well.
Oh, okay. Well, I want to wish you more power and more viewers. It's been great talking to you. You've been a good friend over the years, and hopefully we'll have you come back.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
And I want to welcome, ask you all to come back too. So thanks for joining us, and we'll be seeing you soon.